Hey, what's up? Day 8. 8 is great. It's been 8 days of this video challenge. And I know I haven't posted every video on YouTube, but I've been making them. I've been making a lot of videos I've been making a bunch of videos for the boot camp, for the Young Architect Conference group. Not everything is public, but here we are, day 8. And I wanted to make a video today about reading. Reading for the architect exam. One of the things I've learned after doing all this architect exam stuff for such a long time is that one of the biggest mistakes people make is they buy a book, I don't know, maybe the Ballast book or this Handbook Professional Practice, and they just pick it up and they just read. And then they show up and they take the test and they get their asses kicked because all they've done is just cram information into their heads and they've never practiced how to recall any of it. And that's all the architect exam is really testing. It's your ability to read the question, decipher what they're asking, and choose the right answer in a moment's notice. In a moment's notice, being able to recall and figure this thing out. That's really all it is. It's the ability to recall information. And when you're just reading, and when reading is 100% of the time that you spend studying, it's not even effective. That's why we got to constantly be practicing how to recall information. And I could go off on a side note and talk about practice questions, but that's another video for another day. I want to talk about reading today. So reading shouldn't be 100% of the time that you spend studying. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make, is they just read way too much. It should probably be about 50%. Another one of the biggest mistakes people make is they don't read at all. They don't read at all. They talk to some of the prep companies, and the prep company says, we've made these videos. We read this book for you, and we made videos about it, and you don't need to read it at all. And just buy our $200 a month videos, and you have everything you need to pass all your exams, and you don't have to open a book once. And so then that's the other mistake is people make, is they don't read at all. And what I've learned is that it's great we got all this video content. I wish I had all this video content when I was studying for my exams. But the way we digest information when we're watching a video about it versus when we're reading about it versus when we're talking about it versus when we're listening to someone talk to us about it while we're driving to work every day is drastically different. And so, you can't just be reading 100% of the time, and you can't be reading 0% of the time. We have to read. And this is something I really embrace with the boot camp is, I get a lot of English as a second language, and people say to me, they go, Mike, it's slow. The reading is so slow. And I say, let's embrace it. Let's embrace this reading, because you're not going to pass all these exams. I'll be 100% honest with you. You will not pass all these exams without opening a book. You have to read. We have to read. And so early on, at the beginning of this process, I try to get people comfortable with reading. A lot of times they don't even want to read the B101 and the A201 contracts. And I tell the boot camp, I say, if you don't actually read the contract, you're making it harder for yourself. You're making it harder for yourself, trying to learn and to put all the pieces together from the third-party prep providers. I think the third-party prep providers, myself included, does a really good job of teaching contracts and a lot of different topics. But sometimes just going straight to the source and reading it from the source, it makes it easier. And then it makes the third-party prep providers a lot more valuable because you're not trying to learn it from them. And so we got to read. We got to read. And one of the things I've learned with boot camp is that it takes practice. When you're first getting started studying for these exams, it feels like these chapters take forever, and it's just going slow. And I've learned that reading's really a muscle. And it's like, imagine if you jumped off the couch and you tried to run a marathon without doing any training. Yeah, of course it's gonna hurt, it's gonna be painful, it's gonna be terrible. And so at the beginning of boot camp, a lot of times people sign up and they have to wait for the boot camp to begin. The biggest advice, I tell them, they're like, Mike, give me things to work on, and I say the best thing you can do is we're going to be doing a lot of reading in this boot camp. If you could just start reading. I don't even care what you read. I don't care if you read Harry Potter books. Just start reading every day. Start reading. Let's get that muscle. Let's strengthen that reading muscle. And what ends up happening is everyone, if they embrace the readings and they follow the curriculum and they go through the program the way it's supposed to be gone through, then everyone starts reading a lot faster. And reading stops being such a challenge. And this is something I really try to accomplish in the boot camp early on in the process, is let's get this challenge of reading out of the way and make it easier for you to, the rest of your exams. Now, a couple of quick tips on reading. What I've learned in my own studying and in my life is that it takes your brain about 20 to 25 minutes to mentally and physically arrive at the task that you're at hand. And so I used to study at Starbucks all the time. I used to study at Starbucks and Panera Bread. And I realized after showing up multiple times over and over and over again, the hardest part was the first 15, 20 minutes of sitting there trying to read this book. I would sit there and try to read it, and it was just like, but once I got past that 15, 20-minute mark, it started to get a lot easier. And then I would get sucked into the book. And one of the tips that I recommend, and this is going to sound insane, is what I used to do is I'd get to Starbucks, I'd get my coffee, I'd sit down and I'd start reading, and then there'd be like a bunch of high school kids over there in the background, fooling around, and it was super distracting. And what I used to do is I used to literally read out loud to myself. Not too loud, so it sounds like I'm crazy, but I would read out loud to myself, loud enough to drown out the noise of everything that's happening. And it would start to help pull me into the reading. And it actually made it easier for me to get through that first 15, 20 minutes. And then, after I've gotten sucked in, okay, I've mentally and physically arrived at the task at hand, I would stop reading out loud and I would just keep going. So that's my number one tip, is reading out loud. As silly as it sounds, it really helps kind of make this process easier and get you warmed up. So at the end of the day, listen, we can't be reading 100% of the time, and we can't be reading 0% of the time. It's not effective. It's just you're wasting your time if that's been your studying method. And so it should be about a balance, about 50, 60, 40%. But there's a lot of other things that we need to be doing. But, we can't just write off reading because suddenly, so-and-so made a bunch of videos and they claim that they did all the heavy lifting for you. And if you just watch the videos, you'll just pass the test. No, it doesn't work that way. You're not going to learn and get a deeper understanding of how all these pieces work. So I hope this video was helpful. Hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. Have a great day, everyone. I'll talk to you later. Bye.